This is the Northwest Tank Line Super Bowl show coming to you from Radio Row, New Orleans Convention Center. Of course, Super Bowl 59 taking place this Sunday at the Caesars Superdome. And it'll pit the Kansas City Chiefs going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. Chiefs trying to win 3 in a row. And we're going to talk a little bit more football. We're going to talk about everything with this man because he is my brother from another mother.
My man.
The one and only Lorenzo Neal. And in case you young kids don't know who Lorenzo Neal is, he will be the first fullback inducted in the Hall of Fame. He blocked for, check this out, 1,000-plus yard running back in 11 straight seasons from 1997 to 2007. He was the lead horse, paving the way, and he should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't care what all those, he didn't have enough snaps, it was a different game. Shut up. He was the best at what he did. If you're going to put a punter in for going out there 6 snaps a game, you got to put Lo Neal in for being out there, 50, 60 snaps a game. So there you go. I made my statement right there.
I love you. You're my agent. I'm firing everyone. You know what? You're the new sheriff in town. I'm just excited to be with you. You're always taking care of branding, always bringing great cigars. I mean, you're the man, the myth, the legend. The Super Bowl is not a Super Bowl if you're not here.
Oh, come on.
I'm serious, brother.
No.
They love you.
Hey, I'll tell you one thing. I love having you on because we go back to the days when you came to Vancouver for that golf tournament.
Came to play a little golf, hang out. It was a great time. You had me set up. It was great, man. I felt that I was the mayor. I thought I could run for Trudeau. I'm coming for your job, baby. I'm coming.
You should be coming for that. So, for people that don't know, you're with Believe Network. You cover the Chargers.
Yes.
You do a Chargers podcast there. You cover the 49ers on TV.
Yes, in 95.7 a game, do that as well. So, all over the place. Jack of all trades, the master of none. It's interesting just watching the 49ers kind of fall off a cliff this year. It's just interesting. It goes to show you, if everything being equal, I always tell people this, if everything being equal, players make plays, but coaches make decisions that help determine the outcomes of games. You look at the 49ers, you think about who's left, Robert Saleh. Then the next year you have D'Amico Ryans leave. You think about the coaches that have been taken away from that staff. This year, you saw it come to fruition. You saw Shanahan trying to do certain things. You saw him playing against certain games, and you saw coaches sometimes make decisions that you're like, wow, what's going on? Because Shanahan had to do too much. You see, the defensive coordinator is no longer there, different coaches. So he has to bring in other players and other coaches if he wants to get back. And, of course, the injury bug hurt the 49ers, but also you just look at a lot of different coaching calls, different things that hurt this team. For instance, I remember they're playing the Green Bay Packers this year. They call timeout. Green Bay gets in trouble, calls a penalty because they didn't give the Niners a chance to substitute. So, boom, Shanahan's giving them talking to the official. During that time, the Niners get 12 guys on the field, but Green Bay doesn't substitute, so they're going to call a flag. So Shanahan's letting him know what's going on. So that takes about a minute. The next play, they throw another flag because the Niners still had 12 guys on the field.
Oh.
Just those little things, those little nuances, and that led to a touchdown instead of being a penalty the opposite way. That's 7 points. So you start to watch certain things happen with Shanahan. I think he's one of the greatest coaches. I think he's still a great coach, great offensive mind. He just got to make sure that he gets some great coaches that's going to help him with this plan.
Lo, let me throw this to you, and you've been there in these situations. And I remember a player one time telling me this in the NHL. Like, when you climb that mountain and you get so close, it's really tough to start the next year at the base of the mountain and look up and go, we got to get back up there again, because you know how hard it is and what it's going to take to get up there. You think the 49ers are suffering from a little battle fatigue?
I think that they know what it's like to climb the mountain. They've been climbing it. Every time you get to the top of Mount Rushmore, you have the Kansas City Chiefs right there to cut your head off or just chop your legs off, and you go falling down. You're like the Incy-Wincy spider went the water spout. Down came the Kansas City Chiefs and washed your spider right down, right to Niners out. So, yeah, I think you get tired and fatigued, but I think the 49ers were doomed from the beginning of the season. Before the season started.
Why?
Christian McCaffrey was trying to get more money. Christian McCaffrey, his leg was hurt, so he wasn't able to play. Brandon Ayuk wasn't in camp, so you still were going through that. Didn't get any reps to friggin' first game of the season. Didn't really come through training camp. You also had your one of the best offensive tackles in the league that wanted more money, so didn't get him signed. Training camp. They had not enough guys to even really go to practice to have a true training camp. So you had limited training camp. You had your starting linebackers, starting corners, starting people that were injured and still coming off Achilles knee injuries. Think about Fanga, all those different guys. So you had a bunch of guys not even in camp. The Niners didn't have a great training camp, so you realize they were behind the 8 ball, and then boom, Ricky Pohl, the rookie gets shot, before the season starts. You draft him early in the draft. So I think the Niners were doomed from the beginning, and they just never could get on pace, and then you just saw the injuries continue to mount up.
What's the future hold for the Bang Bang Niner game?
Well, I think that this was a bad year for the Niners. I think that they were in some games they were in. I think bringing back Robert Saleh. I think they got to get better in the trenches. You win football games or won and lost in the trenches, and that's what this Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. That game is going to be won and lost in the trenches. Both these two teams, they can get after it in trenches. Both these two teams got unbelievable defensive fronts, and that's where this ball game is going to be won and lost. And the Niners in the trenches, they lost a lot of the battles. On the run, they were horrid against the run. Teams were able to get the ball and run it down their throat. I remember watching them against the Arizona Cardinals this year in San Francisco. You're up by 3. You're up by 2 points. You know what? You go for it on 4th down, and all of a sudden, so as you make them drive the length of the field, it's only 5 minutes left. They have Arizona on the 10-yard line. Arizona takes the ball with 4 minutes left and drive it the length of the field and score a touchdown to win the game. Not good enough. So what the Niners used to do to teams, run the ball 20, 30, 40 times a game. That's what teams did to the Niners this year. It used to be second half, Niners getting ready to wipe you out. You say, okay, now the Niners going to run the ball. They got their foot on the throat, and that's when they used to bury you. You didn't see that this year. You didn't see the explosion. If you didn't see that killer, you didn't see them able to put opponents out because they weren't good enough. You saw Fred Warner making more and more tackles because the defensive lineman couldn't keep him clean. When you're playing in that 9 wide 9, that means you got 2 wide defensive ends and you got the 2 guys inside. That 3 technique, when he's there blocking, when he's in that one gap between the guard and the center, he's taught, boom, bam, you hit, and all of a sudden you grub and you hold the center and the guard. And now when you do that, or if you stay right there, now you got to put that foot in the ground. And don't let them push you off the line of scrimmage. So when you sit there and you hold or create a new line of scrimmage, now Fred Warner can get downhill. He can run either side. But when you have that nose guard getting pushed off the line of scrimmage and get pushed back into Fred, now you can't make the right decisions. And now you saw the defense playing on their heels, couldn't play on the other side of the ball. When you watch teams play, when you watch Chris Jones, when you watch Kansas City play, and he's playing at nose, he holds both those guys. Now the linebackers can shoot and get downhill and make plays in the backfield. The Niners didn't have that. They lost their explosive. They got beat in the trenches. So the Niners.
Well, not only that, like if you got that nose guard holding up that guard in center, even if you're not shooting the gaps and you're not coming with that, at least you can flow. If the play's going east-west.
Yes,
right?
you don't have to run the bubble.
And you don't get caught in the wash.
Yes.
That's people don't realize how, and I always talk about the interior of the defensive line. They don't get a lot of glory. But you mentioned it, in run situations, they got to keep those guys from getting to the next level of the linebackers. And then even in pass situations, you know as well as I do, if your ends, all ends can come crashing off the side with speed. But if you don't have that pocket being pushed back, all of a sudden that quarterback just steps up in that seam. Thank you very much. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. You've got to get that defensive line making a push in passing situations and holding the ground, or even maybe getting some penetration on run situations. Hey, the other team I want to talk about is the other team that you cover for the Believe Network podcast network, the Los Angeles Chargers. Jim Harbaugh, I think a lot of people looked at him and saying, we're going to start buying stock in this team. Yeah. Yet, Justin Herbert, all of a sudden now, the first couple years in the league, he was the best, next best thing. Everyone's talking about Herbert. This year, there's some question marks about him, right? So how do you look at the Chargers moving forward?
I think Justin Herbert, his game, it did improve. You think about where they won 11 games, they got in the playoffs. They didn't finish well, and they played against a team that they should have won, had opportunities to put the nail in the coffin early in that game and settled for 3, turn over the ball, didn't do well. For what Harbaugh's trying to do, it's about getting a run game. Got to get better in the interior line. You have 2 great offensive tackles that are going to be set. You got to get better in the interior line, I think, as far as offense, either guard, center. Got to get a little better in one of those spots so the pocket can't fall into Justin Herbert's into his lap. Justin Herbert was a lot more efficient. He went like 3 games without throwing an interception. The Chargers now, they don't put the pressure on Herbert. He doesn't have to necessarily go out and win games. He needs to maintain, but he can't maintain when your offense is not protecting you. You don't have a running game. When the Chargers are at their best, I don't think Justin Herbert needs to throw the ball 30, 40 times a game. Justin Herbert needs to get a running game. And you saw the Chargers this year with a running, when guys were healthy, they were hell. When they didn't have a running back, and that's what they're going to do. You're going to see the Chargers go and draft someone early. I wouldn't be surprised, first or second round. You're going to get a backer. You're going to have to find someone in free agency because your backs were irreliable. They were good, but Edwards and Gus Edwards, you got to realize, came off injury. These guys both were injury prone and had injuries, and that was a huge, huge factor. And even Will Dissly, tight end, great blocking tight end. But look at his role. His role this year was catching a lot of passes, and he hurt them in the playoffs. He dropped several balls that stopped drives. It was drive stoppers that would have sustained drives. You got this team, to me, they're going to get interior linemen on offense, and you got to get a tight end that can stretch the field, that be more consistent. Will Dissly will stay on this team as a blocking tight end because he's good at that, but you got to get someone that can stretch the field at tight end.
Lorenzo Neal is our guest, future Hall of Famer, best fullback ever to play the game. Of course, there's no fullback in the Hall of Fame. That's a crock itself, but once they do allow fullbacks in, let Lowe's in there. This Sunday, what do you see happening?
Yeah, God, I love Vic Fangio. He was my he was my linebacker coach when I played with the Saints, got drafted here with the Saints here in New Orleans. And Vic Fangio was, he was a coach of the Dome Patrol, Ricky Jackson, Pat Swell, Sam Mills, Von Johnson, City Champ. So I love Fangio. Fangio is, also with the Niners, when the Niners went to the Super Bowl, what he did with Justin Smith and Justin, with the two backers, the Bowman and, those guys getting downhill, and P. Willis. Nick Fangio has been around. He's with Hardball. He's a great defensive coach-minded guy, and you've seen what he's done with Philadelphia. He's gotten guys to move from different positions. He has guys playing well. This is a good defensive team. It's going to be very, very interesting because you look at it on paper and you just look at stats. The stats tell you the Philadelphia Eagles will win. The stats tell you that they have the super friends, but the one thing that they have to do when you have all the Avengers, everyone's got to be on one accord if you're going to beat Thanos, because Mahomes, he's Thanos, and this guy, he's got the rings and he's got the power. So if you're going to beat him, you got to knock him out, and that's what it's going to take. So Philadelphia, this is going to be a great game. So it's hard to bet against the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think the Kansas City Chiefs haven't been playing great this year, especially offensively. But I don't think enough people give Kansas City Chiefs defense enough credit. I think their defense is the reason why they're winning. I think Mahomes is the outlier compared to being that guy this year. No one talks enough about what this Kansas City defense have been done, led by Chris.
Give me a score.
I think this game is, I just don't think either one of these teams are going to stop one another. I think this is 32-28. And I bet against them too many times. And every time I'm going to say Philadelphia, now I know Kansas City win. I should say Kansas City. I should say Kansas City for Philadelphia win, right? I mean, because every time you go against Kansas City Chiefs, you end up getting your heart broken.
There you go. Hey, Lorenzo, this is always so much fun. Always fun talking with you, man. Always passion, and we have a friendship, like we said, that goes way back. But congratulations with everything you're doing with covering the 49ers there in the Bay Area, and, of course, the Chargers with the Believe Network. And, hey, my brother from another mother, it's always fun seeing you.
They love you. We got to get together, get some cigars tonight, hang out. It's always great hanging out with you, my man. Love you.